Welcome to this episode of eCommerce Australia. Really excited by this. This is a great chat with Donal Breslin, who's the MD of Nomad, the label. A fascinating story. So many takeaways and so many things that he mentioned that you can apply to your business. And I genuinely think it's going to have a really big impact on 2025's numbers and the year ahead. One ask from me, I've got a VIP list there in the show notes as well. Would really love you to jump on and sign up to that VIP list. We've got some exciting announcements to make in 2025. We're doing a lot more live events so I can communicate a little bit more regularly, add a little bit more value to you apart from the podcast. So would really appreciate the sign up, and hopefully we can drive even more value to you and your e-commerce business in 2025. Enjoy the show. Where's that accent from? Are you from the UK originally, or there's a few kind of mixes in there by the sounds of it?
Yeah, so I grew up in the northwest of Ireland, a place called Donegal, little fishing village, Killybegs, one of actually 13 children. My father was a fisherman since he was 14 and only retired a few years ago after 50 years of service. And I came here to Australia about 15 years ago, landed in Sydney on the 4th of January and started working the very next day in tech recruitment. And I worked in that for over a decade before packing it in almost to the day 4 years ago when we kicked off Nomad.
Brilliant, mate. That's an awesome story. So you just come over here for new opportunities and a different lifestyle, or?
Yeah, when I was young, I always thought I was going to go to two places and work because they had a high standard of living, and I could make a good lifestyle for myself. One was Australia and the other was Canada. I came here and I've settled, love the weather, and I've never made it to Canada because I can't imagine dealing with the cold.
Yeah, exactly. Before we get into the e-com chat, and I'm really keen to hear the story that behind Nomad, the label, because it's a fascinating one from what I've read and some of our early discussions. But recruitment, mate, that's a tough game. I spent 6 months as a recruiter, and I have a lot more respect for how hard, sometimes in e-com we think, oh, it's hard, but when your product is actually people who can change their mind, as on both sides, that's a tough life. But you sound like you stuck at it for quite a while.
Yeah, you have to be resilient because people can change their mind. It's not like a product. You ship it out, and unless the customer decides to return it, it's all good. So it's very tricky. You're trying to bring together companies trying to hire people and people looking for jobs and marry them. So very tricky. Lots of ups and downs, lots of last minute phone calls of people letting you down after working on things for weeks. And yeah, to be honest, I think e-com is so much easier. There's a lot more that's within your control. Opportunities I find being able to continually grow has been a lot easier. So thankfully I've made the transition after over 10 years in recruitment.
Yeah, nice one, mate. Well, it's good to have you on the e-com side of things, and let's get into learning more about Nomad, the label. Now, for those who don't know, it's a sustainable women's fashion brand is how I would describe it. I'm sure there's more nuance to that, but really interesting how it started as to where you've grown now. And did you say that was 4 years ago that the e-commerce side of things started?
Almost to the day, in fact, yeah.
Fantastic. So you've grown really sustainably over 4 years. As I mentioned, if you look at Nomad, the label, and you look at their social media and their website, it's all beautifully sort of curated, and it doesn't seem to have ever lost the messaging, and it really knows who its customer is, which I want to dive into in a bit more detail with you later. But let's talk about how it started, because that's a great story in itself.
Yeah, so I met my wife actually at Rainbow Serpent around about 12 years ago when I was working in tech recruitment at the time, and she was actually a market stall lady, and she was next door to my mates who actually had a market stall just selling onesies. We hooked up for the weekend, and from there we've stayed together, and even plenty of times we've been traveling up and down the East Coast selling our wares at market stalls. And for many years I was working like 7 days a week, 5 days grinding it in recruitment, the other weekends, days out actually at the market selling our wares. It was a very different type of clothing and homewares that we were selling. It was more boho, sort of general in nature, that it could be sold to a woman, anything from say 20 up to 60. When COVID hit, and of course all live events at the time were completely cancelled, and my wife Louisa had the amazing idea of starting a new brand, like so many other people did at the time. And I've mentioned it to anybody who's ever listened to me to say that I was dead against it. Like at that stage, the world was in turmoil, the share market was crashing. We're talking about like May 2020 here, right? And I was dead against it. but nothing was stopping her, and she wanted to push ahead with it, and thankfully she did. And when I realized that there was only one way we're going to go, I got behind her. And at the time, for the previous few years, I'd actually been working with the top sales and marketing people in the country. What was working with, say, SaaS vendors coming in, want to build out their go-to-market strategy teams. And before I started in e-com, say 4 years ago, I was consuming all that type of sales and marketing material. So I knew that having a very clear knowledge of your ideal customer profile was essential. What you needed to do is to serve that, in our instance, lady who's over 50, who's looking for natural fabric, that breathability, these classic simplistic styles that we needed to provide to her better than the big box retailers. Yeah. This lady, in many cases, does go to the shopping centers, but she doesn't find what she wants. She's not resonating with that type of brands that's out there. So if you think back to those dark days of COVID, Louise and myself, we spent hundreds of hours identifying the profile of this lady, of who we wanted to build the brand around. So those months in the making. Thankfully, my wife is the same profile. She was transitioning her interests and the styles that she wanted to actually design. And that was from more, say, colorful, light, sort of beachy clothing, more to these breathable, natural, plain fabrics. We've seen so many other brands move in this direction, but we first set out with it. And I think it really resonated almost from the get-go. And we've seen growth through the 4 years of almost doubling every single year by being laser focused on this Nomad woman. And every decision that we make in the business, from the designs to the marketing, the messaging, the service, everything is from the lens of the customer. And I think that's really been the competitive advantage we've had. We've been fortunate in some ways that economic sort of cost of living has made it more difficult for younger people. But for the most part, we're actually servicing the over 50-year-olds, the boomers. The cost of living hasn't bitten so much, and they're able to support a sustainable brand like ourselves. They're not as into the hype and the trends. They want to find a label that they can know, like, and trust. And we really put that at the forefront, so that we're not just acquiring her on social media, but she's able to stick with us and keep coming back. And that's how you become profitable in e-com.
Yeah, fantastic, mate. There's a lot of questions I have just based on that one answer. So really interesting. And I love the fact that you really spend a lot of time getting to know your customer. Those that have listened to my podcast all year know how much I sort of really sort of drive that point home as much as I can, that all of the best brands that I have on this podcast and the best e-com managers, that's the one commonality that they really double down on, is knowing your customer. So in terms of building out that ICP, you mentioned Louise is kind of that person or that profile, which sort of helps. But, to what level of detail, like were you looking at what they interact with on social? Were you looking at where they shop? Were you looking at the brands that they buy? Things were you considering when you were building out that profile, just so people listening can get a sense of how deep they need to go?
Yeah, it's a good question. And it wasn't so much that. We were actually thinking about a woman who wants to, when things open up in COVID times, wants to travel with comfort, right? So my wife has a superpower, and that is to be able to make clothing that is actually comfortable to wear. As you get older, looking sexy and having a appeal to, say, partner or your friends and going along with what's trendy is less important. You want to be able to have stylish clothing that feels good on. It becomes more important as you get a little bit older, especially in a warm climate like Australia, where breathability of the fabrics is crucial. So I think one of the things that's been good for us is that we haven't dived into the sea of sameness. We're looking to find something that's different, right? Because if you want to be successful, you've got to do something that isn't necessarily being done well by the big box retailers. And I think we've maintained that dedication and focus to this woman and what her needs would be. And we used to say things like, okay, well, if our woman was setting out on a holiday to Noosa, what would she feel comfortable getting on the plane wearing, not knowing what's going to happen when she gets off the plane as to where she might go in a nice restaurant? What would she want to wear? So how is she going to be both comfortable and stylish and feel confident? And that was really what was important to us, rather than going, okay, well, what are others doing? And I think that when you work in the fashion industry, and some part of this is an assumption, you're looking to other brands that you know, and you probably, without even knowing a bit, biasedly following that trend, rather than going, okay, what can we do differently? So I feel like it was more like, who is this woman? And we had already been out to hundreds of events, meeting people in person, knowing the needs of women around that breathability, covering your shoulders and your arms and elasticated waistband and stuff like that. So you're still stylish, but you feel confident when you're out and about. And that was really the core of the planning that we had. And I knew that this woman had a little bit more disposable income. She was very concerned around being scammed, because if you can remember, there was a lot of that type of thing going on during the COVID times. So I knew that we needed to be upfront and honest with her and not try any sort of gimmicks, and make sure that we could get the customer come back because she trusted us.
Yeah, fascinating. And I think too, even just doing the early yards at the markets probably helped build that as well.
Yeah.
So out of interest, before we move on, how was the business when you were at the markets, and then where are you guys at? Like, what's been the journey? You said you should have been in ecom for 4 years, but how was the business before you started ecom, and then sort of where is it at today?
Yeah, so it's a very different type of situation, because when you're at the market, you have to actually be there for those hours. Now, I know a bit of sort of biasness, but we were one of the better when it came to it. We were definitely taking in more revenue at markets than others. My wife and I, Louisa, take great pride, and she had an amazing presentation when we were at the markets. And some part of what I used to say is like, the market is an entertainment game, right? Yeah. It's not necessarily you go with a shopping list, but who's providing the most presentable stall with the good music and the vibes. And we used to be at places like, say, Kayama, Avoca Beach, really beautiful places that families go out, and we would draw them in. So, a good day for us would be anything between, say, $2,000 to $5,000. Where in today we'll be selling, bad day for us would be 20,000, and a good day is 1,000. And the days over the days over Black Friday were much more than that. So we've come a long way. These days we have a lot more variable costs that you will have within the ecom, as well as your OPEX. So a very different type of business model. But it's all been compounding from that point. We've been very ambitious. We've lived quite, say, affordable lifestyles. We've never got ahead of ourselves.
The nomad lifestyle, I guess you could say.
100%, yeah. So we used to travel around in the white van, and we didn't have luxurious things or anything of that nature, and we've continued to live that way. Like, we've been fortunate enough to be able to buy a house in recent times, but we're not driving around in Lambos like you might see the bros within the ecom game or anything like that. What's important to us is growing the business and giving the customer, what they expect, and thankfully being able to continue to compound that through profit and recycling that cash into opportunities to improve our offering, improve the service, go global. Next year we'll be looking at wholesale. So there's a lot of opportunity for us out in the market.
Yeah, fantastic. And you were saying before we press record that it was 100% bootstrapped. So it can be done, scaling an e-commerce brand profitably. Even in this current environment, it still can be done with the right, the right structures and the right systems.
Absolutely, but you've got to know your numbers, right? That is huge. I've been following. So, say for the beginning, I was all focused on a lot of guys out there on social media, whether that's LinkedIn, YouTube, and learning all things about e-com and marketing. But over the course of the last, say, year or maybe 2 years, I've been digesting a lot of material on ecom finance and ensuring that we're building a sustainable business, and we're not, for example, acquiring customers that are actually unprofitable. We have the metrics in place to ensure that we are actually making profit, and then we're able to reinvest that into the business, putting the more fuel on the fire to continue to grow. I do wonder about some other businesses when they're acquiring customers at the most expensive time of the year, such as Black Friday. CPMs, I was looking at it between September and November, were like 37% increase, and they're acquiring those customers while they're on sale at 30 to 40%. Other players in the market will just say your courier company is going to be likely have a surcharge. You're likely to have increased costs of your staff. So you're actually having all of these extra costs while you're discounting. I do wonder, are you actually taking on unprofitable customers? Even if you're not taking on unprofitable customers, you're financing those customers, And where is it coming from? Shopify Capital, Bayflyer. That's a dangerous spiral. So thankfully, we're ahead of that, and we're actually profitable at around about, say, 17% EBITDA. And it gives us a great platform to continue to grow. We're so cautious to say, okay, not all customers are the same. What type of customer do we want to go after? And yes, maybe we're fortunate in that the customer that from day one we desired to be coming back and being loyal to us have a bit more sustainable income to afford the type of pieces that we have, or just say on average between $150 and $200 with an average order value of $250. But that means that we can actually take on opportunities if we need to hire extra people or take on technology that we think will actually improve our processes. We have that opportunity without having to have a cash conversion cycle that's going out to 100 to 120 days that you're financing through interest that is probably going to over time cripple you. And will you be then there for the long term? And I think some parts of the decision making that's out there, whether that's at smaller retailers or even big players, executives, like I do scratch my head and going, well, why would these businesses who've been around a long time need to be discounting that much? Well, maybe they have got bonuses and whatever else attached to top line revenue over making good decisions for the fundamentals of your business.
That's one of the best answers I've heard all year. Super insightful. Yeah, I agree. I think so had you tried Black Friday previously, or because you're so dialed into your customer, you just know that that's not the Black Friday personality, and then that you've got that sustainable element, which sort of means that you're not really interested in Black Friday as well? Have you tried it and those insights come off the back of doing it 1 year, or was it strategic to go, no, we're not getting involved in Black Friday at all?
Okay, it's very interesting, and I hope this actually provides some insight to others out there. So initially we said, no, we won't be a discount brand. That was by the beginning. Let's go after those better, profitable customers who genuinely believe in the value of what we provide, rather than going after the discount bargain hunters. And I do sometimes use this analogy. I used to be the guy who would go to the supermarket and there would be a discount on bread, for example, or butter, or whatever it may be. And then I would buy it because I was that guy, and I would come out with the receipt and I'd say, save $30, $40. I get a buzz from that. Yeah. Then I look at my sister-in-law and she appreciates quality. She has the disposable income. She wants the best. She'll research it. She finds brands that are loyal, that she's loyal to, that she trusts, and she goes back there and spends it all. Who do you want to build your business around, me or her? And we decided we would rather build it around a customer like her. So that was quite a conscious choice we had from the beginning. Now, one of the things that we've always had is a bit of a constraint on our supply chain. So we've always not ordered enough, or the factories have not been able to keep up with the amount that we need. And give you an example, last year in peak season, we had 700 pre-orders. The customers had trusted us enough to give us over $200 in average order value, 700 of those orders. There's no way we're going to be discounting, right? That's not even an option for us. We couldn't get the boxes to come here with the product enough. And when they did arrive, I even remember going down to the depot to get it myself in a van so that we could fulfill those orders and come good on our promises. Completely different situation than most other retailers. Now this year, to give you an idea though, last year we went from, I think it was say August being 300 a month, 300K a month, to into October and it was 600, right? So we doubled. This is all full price. This is not discounting. Then it was like 750 in November and something similar in December, right?
What did you put that growth down to? Like that's huge growth in a couple of months. Was that building? Had that been building to that? Had you dropped a new range? Like why all of the sudden that growth?
The flywheel effect. Sometimes it just all comes together. Like it was little bits and pieces that eventually took off because we're coming into those warmer months in Australia.
Yeah.
And something I don't understand, the demand is increasing for clothes like ours. And then coming up to Christmas and people have the best time of the year in Australia. It's Christmas, it's holiday season, people want to wear comfortable, breathable fabrics, and yet so many of these other discounters are decreasing their prices when demand is increasing, which counterintuitive to normal market forces. So no, I think that we were doing a lot of advertising, and then yes, we dropped good product, we improved our creatives. It is a whole combination of factors. But if we come around to this time and hands in the air, I thought we would experience not quite the same as that, but maybe growth of the range of 20, 30, 40%. We didn't see it. So I got my forecasting wrong. And when we were, say, coming through the months of June, July, August, and the idea is, okay, do we reorder some of our winners? I ordered too many of them, right? Because we've come to the point where we're sort of over the last, up to November, just say, each month's been around about 1 million. And we were able to build up the US to 2 million this year, but it dropped off when it started getting cooler through September and October. And we're only able to increase domestically by, say, 10, 20%, nothing major. So I had more product than I needed, and I had over ordered. So that is the reason why we actually participated in Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And it was only because of the mistake that we made, not because of we want to stake our whole year on it. We had SKUs that we worked out through calculators that my CFO, fractional CFO, Valentin Krusakov, has provided to me. And I know what is overstocked. We're not going to sell that within the 3-month time frame. We need to put it on sale. And we made some really good offers around that. And we were able to move that inventory off to create the cash flow that we needed to reinvest into the products that we dropped yesterday. And we have a few more that we're going to be dropping over the course of the next week and then into next year. A very different circumstances that led us, but we're all strategic in nature. I'm not really completely in the same view as so many others out there that they're actually creating collections for Black Friday and dropping them straight into the sale. And I've seen them talking about this on LinkedIn, and I was scratching my head going, I'm pretty sure that is illegal. That is against consumer law. And I did a little a check on it. They have to be on the normal price for a reasonable period of time before they go into the sale. But yeah, it's I still haven't really worked out this whole Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and why decision makers at these brands are doing what they're doing. As I'm not actually completely convinced it's net positive for retailers. I am for lots of other players inside of I'll just say the industry, whether they're the ad platforms or they're media buyers that obviously were spending more money on ads, so they're making more money. But are we really benefiting? One of the reasons why we didn't sell what we forecasted is because customers are savvy, including myself. You know the discounts are coming in November, so you don't buy what you would normally buy in October. So then it's all this pent up demand, and we've seen that in November where they came to spend. And then you're also traditionally taking what would be now in the early stages of December, like the biggest period for retail, and bringing that into November. So all you're doing is you're actually bringing forward or delaying shopping into this period where you're discounting. And even some of the brands that I love, that I actually would be happy to pay full price, they're never getting full price out of me again because I know they're going on sale not too long. And that's basically what we've trained the customers out there to do. And who blames them? It's great for them.
Yeah, spot on. You're right. Over the years, we've trained consumers in Australia. I can only talk for Australia, but we've definitely trained consumers not to spend in October, or early November. And so we have, they might be picking out their products and they're just waiting to see if you don't go on discount, I still think you're going to get the sale. But people that's their spending window and they have a certain amount of money and they're hoping you go on sale. But if you've done a good job in building that awareness, if you've nailed your ICPs, if you've nailed the communication, you've built some emotion into it, they want to buy the product, they've worked out that you're not going on sale, or perhaps you've even told them, hey, we're not entering into the Black Friday, Cyber Monday sale, which would be an even better way to do it, then they're going to buy your product anyway. But I do understand it is a risk to take that. It is a bit of a risk to take that punt, but I do think people are spending, this is the period that they spend. And whether or not you're on discount or not, if they want the product enough, they're going to buy it. If you've created enough emotion, and I think, what you guys have done really well there is just identify that ICP so strongly that it just talks so well to them. And that's where that growth has really come from organically. And I'm going to make an assumption here.
Yep.
And hopefully this doesn't come across wrong, but that ICP, the 50 plus female, they're obviously, they talk to other, their friend groups, and they turn up and they feel great and they look good and they're wearing the stuff. There's no greater ambassador for your brand than someone who's wearing it and is not paid to sell it, just talking it up. And so perhaps that's where that organic growth comes from, really organic, natural growth.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of that where she's going out on coffee, lunch dates with their friends, and people are asking them about what they're wearing, and it's a little different. We have a lot of feedback like that, and hopefully they're sharing the details of where she got it, and they're coming to us. It's hard to measure that, but we did recently take on an affiliate/ambassador program, and we're incentivizing women to share that, and we're seeing some growth in it, and hopefully next year we'll be able to maybe build up maybe 5% or something of our total revenue through those types of channels. I have been following various fashion marketing, say, knowledgeable people on LinkedIn, and they say when you get to our sort of scale, affiliate/ambassador programs can be excellent for that type of it. And the people that we have wearing our clothes and sharing it on social media are genuine customers, right? They're not all just people who, because we're offering them a certain amount of money or something, are deciding to wear it. And yeah, we're seeing some good signs from that.
Yeah, you must be able to read my notes. That was the next question I had, was around collaboration. So we've seen, I think, the rise of the collabs and brands partnering up together and using the most of both their networks. The question was, is that going to be in your plans? But it sounds like that is the case.
Yeah, we started gifting probably about a year ago. That was the start of it, and we've got now small stable of micro influencers that resonate with the brand and have shown that they get good engagement. There'll be plenty of evenings, right, where they'll actually put a post up and my phone will just go crazy for like the next hour with all of the comments that these women are sharing about how great it is. And they're mostly bought into that personality, and they're not like big influencers or anything like that, but they are trusted by a small group, we'll just say, rather than a massive following. They're very engaged, and yeah, as I say, we're seeing some good results from it, and hopefully that can be a springboard for going into other countries as well. I think that women do like to see it on other women that look like them, that they can sort of feel that it's a product that's good for them too, because we do use beautiful models at the photo shoots. It's a big part of the formula that we have of the marketing, and we get a lot of requests to see it on women that are older, or maybe they're not as in shape, we'll just say. As you get older, of course, you might put on a little bit more weight, and they want to see that, and we use the micro influencers as a means to be able to do that, and then to show that on our social media as well. And we have a comfort club, which is our group that we have on Facebook, and we have a tight knit community within that, and we're sharing, and they're showing other ladies wearing our stuff as well within it. So I think that gives peace of mind that we're not just, because there is concern, right, when women are out looking at new brands and whether or not they should jump on board. But if they see women that are similar to them, and we even do that in the reviews, for example, we use Okendo for the reviews, and we actually have like, what's your age range? What's your weight? What's your height? All these things. So the women, when they're looking at that, they can actually say, well, these women are actually over 50, right? And they are a similar size to me. And they just feel like, okay, great. I can actually see myself wearing that, because women who are like me are wearing this brand.
Yeah, fantastic. So you get that level of detail, and then you leave them on the reviews, and they're happy for you to do that. Obviously, it can be a personal thing, but that's a great way to sort of break down some of that risk for first time buyers. And the other thing, when you look at your socials and you look at your website, yeah, you do have some brilliant sort of photography and the way it's all laid out on the website. Obviously, I'm not the ICP, but it looks, I can get it's really hard for ecom brands to get that touch and feel right, but I feel like you guys have it very, very dialed in and very close to being able to know exactly what they're going to get, which is so important for first time purchasers. How do new customers find you? Like, what's the acquisition strategy? Obviously, I would imagine that Facebook would work quite well for that consumer. But yeah, what have you sort of tried? What's working for you this year?
Yeah, so like most e-com brands, the discovery in most cases is going to take place on the Meta platforms. So I think that our woman, this over 50-year-old woman who is sharing photos of their family, is really engaged on Facebook, where maybe the younger population are going to some other platforms. So we're quite fortunate that the best platform for advertising products, our Nomad woman spends a lot of time on there. So short form video has been groundbreaking for us. So going back now to the early stages of the pandemic, we would hire a beautiful villa when they were not actually being occupied by guests, and we would not even be there ourselves, but we would actually hire really good photography. And I said at the time, and I sort of look back on it, and that we actually invested in a photographer that we use even to today before we could afford her. It probably didn't make economic sense, but it is hugely important that you're showcasing your product at the best possible. Like, I can't actually think that there's going to be a point where it won't make sense. And then video, we would actually just use iPhone and then shoot loads of it. So they'd be like, okay, you take the still shot, come around here, walk with the product, show the fabric up close, show the draping of it. And then we had those as the Facebook ads, and that's been huge, and that continues to today. We invest loads of time and money. My wife and I, when we're in the evening time after coming back from the warehouse, we're sitting watching the TV. She's got her drama show she loves, and she's making the videos. I'm getting them into the Facebook ads. This is what we do. This is the machine of the brand that's actually got it going. So in most cases, they'll discover us on Meta. We do invest heavily in Google, probably more than other apparel brands. I've got Michael Nedadine working with me. He's probably a bigger, heavier hitter than I need, but he does an excellent job. He's been with us now for about 2 years. And I also invested heavily in SEO, obviously, an area that you're coming from. And I've been doing that for about 2 years. And I just went out and I came from a recommendation, best guy I knew, didn't know of you at the time. And we've done some great work in SEO. So this week we're just looking at it, and probably about 2% of our overall revenue is coming from non-brand search. The keywords we went after to begin with being linen pants. So we use marketing strategies that are successful out in direct to consumer of having a hero product. We have a particular pair of linen pants, and they're about a quarter of our overall revenue. From day one, we went after that market and that keywords. We're number one spot for linen pants. And there's a lot of players. They've been around 10, 20 years. We're there. Linen clothing, we're in the top 3. We have done a lot of work to get us there. So that was something that over time we'll see more returns from it, but also work with, and particularly work heavily with Brendan Gillen, and he uses the idea, and maybe you do as well. When is the best time to plant a tree? Yesterday, 10 years ago. If you haven't done that, do it today. So we've been investing in SEO very heavily. Some things you're wondering yourself, like, should I really do that? Like when you have on the collection page and you put all that copy that you're hoping no one ever reads. But that's the stuff that you've got to do if you want to be able to play the Google game and be able to have organic traffic coming to your site. So we have the playbook, right, of what works in direct to consumer, and we don't really go outside of it. Obviously, we have retention through Klaviyo. We do a lot of work around both campaigns as well as the flows. We don't do TikTok because we don't believe our woman is on there so much. Maybe if it exhausts out of the other channels, and I think we've got a lot of millions to go before that's going to happen, we will look at these other ones. You see things that come on to the scene, like app loving and everything now seems to be getting a lot of attention. TikTok shops, they're not really, I don't believe our woman is on there. But if I'm proven wrong, we'll invest into those channels as well in time.
Yeah, fantastic. Lots to unpack there. So a couple of questions I've got for you. Did you say 2% non-brand? That seems quite low.
You think for yours? Yeah.
Yeah. Is that, that's exciting for you guys if that's, if you can grow those non-branded search terms out to 20%, 30%.
Sure.
Like that's it shows how heavy and how bang on you've got that brand. Brand recognition is huge. So it sounds like there's huge opportunity in those non-branded search terms, which was just something that I thought was interesting. And second of all, it's funny. I didn't realize you were working with Brendan Gillen. He's I love him on the show. I actually sent him a video today. He was the most watched episode of my podcast in 2024. He took that as humbly as he possibly could. One thing he's good at, obviously, is the long form video, right? He does really well on YouTube. Have you guys tried any long form video content? Are you thinking about longer form video content, or are you sticking with the ads and the short form video for you guys from an organic sort of content strategy?
Yeah, so we do say a collection video, and that one just says around 45 seconds. And we'll put that on YouTube, and then Michael can take that and put it into the ads, display ads, and maybe build some hype on the lead up to a collection. But for the most part, we stick around that 15 to 20 seconds. And that seems to be a winning formula. Going beyond that and maybe having, you see like Facebook Live and certain brands that are out there will do a collection and then they'll talk through each piece and all. That's not really something that we have lent ourselves to so far. I'm not saying we'll never do it. Maybe we can move towards that in the future. But so far, just 15 to 20-second videos is performing well for us. And to mention as well, in terms of CRO on that product page, we realized how well these videos were doing. And then we've seen other brands, top brands like True Classic, etc., in the direct-to-consumer using VideoWise. So I was one of the first early adopters of VideoWise in Australia. Maybe there are plenty of others since that. And then we have it 3 to 4 videos showcasing the product in a video around that 15 to 20 seconds on the product page. So she doesn't just say, goes through the gallery where she can see still images, both lifestyle as well as studio, but she can see the video on how the product drapes and see the quality of the material and so forth. And I feel like it just gives her that more confidence that she can take action and it's a product she's looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. I think your product pages are really dialed in, and one of the first things I noticed was just how many different angles, touch points, varieties. You really do get as close to being back to the market it can in an e-com sense, and that's always been the challenge. But I think that's definitely something that you've done really well. How do you currently utilize AI? Obviously, it's a big conversation. How much have you sort of incorporated AI into what you do now, and is that a conversation that you guys are sort of having ongoing as to how to utilize that?
Probably just minimally using it. We have some features inside of Gorgeous, our CX platform. If they're in the chatbot, it can give them some sort of commonly answered questions, give them the information they may have around, say, the shipping, delivery times, costing, those types of frequently asked questions. We have it inside of that. We do use a little bit in SEO, minimal in terms of our actual copy. I have Lavender doing copy for us. He's been a game changer, joining our business earlier this year. And then we even use, believe it or not, AI to detect whether or not the copy is actually human or AI. And in many cases, even when it is human, it comes out as AI. So we're talking about it in the sense of like, what is the risks for us maybe down the track? Where could some of our SEO be impacted by Google crawling every page on the internet to say, is that human or not? And whether or not it's correct, it's false positive or not, maybe our rankings could be impacted. So it's a conversation that we're having, but it's not something that we're sort of seeing we need to do anything major about right now. I'm following things that are happening through social media like anybody else. If I think something is big, we'll consider it and see if it is right for our business. But at this moment in time, I don't feel like there's a lot. It's just more like we've already got some tools that we're using. They're bedding in some AI features. We'll utilize them where it makes sense, and some places we'll just say, no, that's not really for our business.
Yeah, that's a good answer. And yeah, most of the plugins or the tools that we use now have some AI sort of, as you say, embedded in, and that's kind of the next step, and who knows where it'll go. It's all sort of happening pretty fast, which is interesting. I just survey amongst my friends the amount that no longer search on Google and search on ChatGPT is interesting. It's frightening. It's reality. So that's where I almost think SEO is making a comeback, because you can't serve ads on ChatGPT, but it does read the cues from the search engines, and then I could completely be rose-colored glasses, and maybe I just don't know. That it's going to be really interesting the next few years to see the search history, because as much as an SEO guy like me wants it to continue to be on Google, I reckon half my friends go to ChatGPT first. Interesting.
Yes. Yeah, but they're your friends, right? So what type of profile are they? People that are probably more tech savvy.
Yeah,
Most
unruly
people, it's
bunch.
not. Yeah. Like compared to the most part, your actual consumers out there, it'll be interesting to see what actually changes from their experience. from speaking to our customer, and I still speak to her today. They have my telephone number from being, the main point of contact for all customer service, and even reach out to some of our VIPs and talk to them from time to time. That's not a world they're interested in. They genuinely like the personal touch. We have customer service here who will put that human element. They're over 40-year-old. They can, relate to this woman. Maybe out there for different types of brands where they've got younger demographic that are embracing this technology, that will work for them. Watch this space. Anything can happen. Who am I to predict the future? But I don't see anything major happening in the next 1 or 2 years. But beyond that, anything's possible.
Yeah, no, you're spot on, 100%. How do you? Two more questions. I want to know where Nomad the label's going in 2025. That's the last question. Before we get there, you just touched on a really interesting point that I haven't really spoken to you too much on in this podcast. How do you get to know your customers? Obviously, it was easy when you're at the market stalls. Now you're in e-com. You've got by the sound of it, you've got a Facebook community which people can join, which gives you a good temperature check of the discussions and what's going on. But you mentioned that you ring a few customers or you speak to a VIP list. Like how do you get that two-way conversation going with your customers?
Yeah, so up until about 2 years ago, I was the customer service.
Yep.
And I'm coming from a background of being on the phone for the majority of the working hours and know the importance of asking good questions and listening to these women. And some of them want to share a lot of information. So I gleaned a lot. I confirmed some things that I thought before or assumed before, but was confirmed to me. And then some things that I learned that were new as to what really was important to them. And we built the brand, both product and service, around that. And even to today, some of these people still have my telephone number, or they find it, right? I don't know where it is all the time, but these women are finding me on WhatsApp, text messaging, like literally before this call, texting me. They know who I am, and they're asking me about the sizing and whatever else. So I'm at the forefront of it. Like maybe give you some examples of what happened during Black Friday. So we're discounting, like many others, on products that we want to move on. So we don't give them a returns policy, right? They can't actually return it. That's the deal, right? And we make it very clear. But some women, they haven't taken the time to actually digest that part of the deal, right? And some of them are upset. I tell the customer service, give them my telephone number. I'm happy to talk to them. I spoke to a number of women who they thought in some cases that that's not legal and it's against their consumer rights. And I would rather that I am, as the managing director who made the decision to make this offer, talk to these women about it, listen to what they have to say. And that has been key for us. We have a telephone number both in the US, which we use from Gorgeous, as well as here. We have people that's here from 8 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon. We answer the phone. This woman likes to know that if something hasn't gone right, they need to return, that there is a recourse for them. Because in so many cases that they tell us, they calling brands, nobody answers the phone. And they leave a message, maybe they get a call back that day or the next day. Like, I'm not saying people don't call back at all, they probably do. But knowing that someone is there to pick the phone up is the type of service that our customer values and appreciates, and I think makes her stickier. And then when she's thinking next time around about who I buy from, well, I know, like, and trust that brand. And therefore, that's where you can be profitable. So there's a whole bunch of means that we do to stay in touch with the customer and understand what's of value to her.
Yeah, spot on. No, that's a bit of good old-fashioned service, and that's where e-commerce can really win if they are willing to give the same level of service, if not better, than the in-store.
Yeah.
I heard Simon Beard talk at Retail Fest this year, but earlier on this year, and yeah, he was saying that, and I never actually thought of this, and I've got a background in retail as well, but, you get a customer in and you might be able to convert them at 20-25%, but then you look at e-com and it's 2 to 3 to, maybe 4% if you're lucky. So there's a lot of work to be done between that gap, and if you can give the same level of service or exceed it from an e-com brand to an in-store physical location, you're gonna keep that conversion rate nice and healthy, which is what you've alluded to there.
Yeah. Like, it's not scalable, right? It's not scalable to speak to millions of customers. But if we have the winning formula, if it was broken, I might think differently. There's probably loads of people listening that's going, well, you can't do that when you're like tens of million brand. And I get it, absolutely. But at this present time, we can service them. And this particular customer is a profitable, valuable customer. This is what they're interested in. And therefore, the investment in having people there that's willing to pick the phone up and talk to them when they have queries is worth it and it's actually having a positive ROI. We'll see what the future holds and whether or not we can maintain that as we go from 10 to 20 and hopefully beyond that. We'll watch and see.
Yeah, but I also think the insights that you gain from that is just help your business so much. If there's some common inconsistencies in that feedback coming through, or there's a part of that sort of customer journey which is not quite hitting the mark, it's just for you to hear that it's you can make a decision like that and fix that, or the next 10,000 customers that you acquire over the next kind of period as well, which is important. 2025, mate. Last question. What does it look like for Nomad the label? Where's the growth? It sounds like the US is growing quite rapidly. Is there other expansion to other markets, or new product launches, or what's in the plans?
Yeah, so let's talk about the product for a moment, and that we're similar to many brands. I think, say, Believe, Spell, Kavari, maybe Arnhem, etc., have started out in Bali, which is where we make our product. We have a long history of making it in Bali, and we were doing that with the market stall, so over 10 years. But we've pretty much capped out. They don't have the capacity to continue to service us. So I have spent, as well as hiring a top designer in recent months, and we've looked to new locations. So she previously had a relationship with a fantastic factory in India, and we're just putting in POs with them right now. So that'll be dropping, I think, in April. We're also building out relationships in Vietnam, and we have 2 factories there, one in woven and others in knits, and this is going to increase our capacity as well as the type of range that we've got. So one of our top objectives this coming year is to wholesale. Like, we've literally not been able to keep up with demand from direct to consumer to wholesale our product. And we would get inquiries, probably a little bit less now because they realize we're a direct to consumer brand, but we have at least a list of 100 retailers who want to stock our product. So that's going to be something we're doing from May next year. The other things we want to do, so we have very much invested in the US, and we've been able to grow it this year to 2 million in revenue. We've got a foothold in that market. It's obviously so much bigger when it comes to consumer spending, the population, etc. And this Nomad woman is plentiful over in the US. These boomers over there appreciate the type of clothing we've got for their vacations, for their summer wear. And while having a customer base, a brand that's now recognized, a return system. So started out just sending my product, the return product through Loop, to my brother's house in San Diego, and that became so big, it was getting like 200 a week and stuff, that he started out having a unit, a little warehouse that we have right now, and he is repurposing every single day the returns and sending them back out to US and Canadian customers, about 20 to 30 of those orders each day, and we send the rest from here. And we feel like we're going to see the flywheel effect over there come March and April that I was talking about we experienced here approximately 15 months ago, because it takes time to build up that know, like, and trust out of a customer base that wants to shop with you. And of course, we're going to acquire a whole bunch of new customers because there's social proof out there. Coming back to the reviews and everything, the customers in the US are sharing that. They can see that a similar customer person to them, a profile, is buying and is happy with their Nomad pieces. So I'm really encouraged to what that looks like. Another objective that we have is to go into the UK. Maybe it's a little bit of a punt, but I was over there a few months ago during the summer. We sell a lot of the pants. That's our winning hero product, and we're going to go in with that. I see other product over there when I was sort of analyzing the market, and our product would be very competitively priced. I think it's a better quality. When I was looking at the US, and I decided just to not go with Globally at the time. It didn't make sense, but I do follow a lot of their material that they put out there, and there's a lot of Australian apparel businesses who's doing well in the UK. So we're going to do that through markets of our US Shopify store, so we don't have to create a new store. We don't have to use, say, something like Globally to be able to service them. And earlier in this particular piece, I mentioned I had 12 brothers and sisters. One of them is doing the returns in the US, and I'm going to recruit one in Ireland to do the returns from the UK and Europe. And it's vitally important. You can imagine if you've bought something and you're from London and it doesn't fit and you want to send it all the way back to Australia, well, you're never going to shop with those guys again. So that is a huge part of what you've got to be able to set up to be able to really grow your presence. So I think we've got the systems and the infrastructure in place to really see some growth over there. And then we have the product, right? I'm really passionate about what we're going to be able to bring to the market next year. So pretty exciting. I was chatting with Michael only a couple of days ago, and we sat down when I was actually presenting a bit of a talk on Nomad's growth at Brendan Gillen's sort of annual thing he has to all of his sort of students. And I did that around this time last year, and I told him we were going to do 10 million in revenue this year with 1 million in profit, and we've been able to achieve that. And he goes, well, what are you going to do next year? And I hadn't actually thought about it. I was so deep in making sure that we achieved our numbers this year. So I'm going to do that over the course of the next couple of weeks and figure out, well, what can we do direct to consumer, both domestic, international, and wholesale. And once we get that number, we're going to hit it.
Nice one, mate. Yeah, it's there's a lot going on in the brand by the sounds of it. But I said off the top, it's a brilliant story from, as you said, living the nomad lifestyle and going up and down the east coast of Australia to market stalls and having to pivot into com, and then being able to have the amount of growth that you've had really naturally and organically, and learning as you go, still keeping the values the same as the brand. And I think the biggest thing for me and the takeaway that I hope the listening audience gets is just around that, knowing your customer profile so intimately that you can make all those decisions, and you can hire photography that may be out of your budget, but you just know how important it is to your customers, and where they shop, and the messaging, and what's important to them around customer service. And so I think that really kind of highlights the fact that if you want to do well in 2025, you need to really know that customer, know exactly who your target customer is, and build the CX journey around that. So hey, thanks for coming on. Thanks for being really open and sharing a lot of the numbers and the journey and the insights. I'm sure a lot of e-com founders and managers will get a lot out of this one.
It's great talking with you, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Donal. Cheers, mate.